The camp on the Porcupine. We should have all liked to start right in digging, but Bagsby strenuously opposed this. "You all have a rich diggings here," said he, "and you want to stay a while and get the most there is out of them. And if you're going to do that, you've got to get a good ready. You've got to make a decent camp and a stockade for the horses at night. And if you want your grub to last you more than a month, there's got to be some regular hunting and fishing done." "That'll take a week," cried Johnny impatiently. "Or more," agreed Bagsby, with entire complacence. "You can bull at it and go to tarring up the scenery if you want to, but you won't last long." Unpalatable as this advice seemed, with all the loose gold lying about, we ended by adopting it. Indeed, we added slightly to our self-imposed tasks by determining on the construction of cradles. Yank had figured out a scheme having to do with hollowed logs and canvas with cleats that would obviate the need of lumber. We deputed Johnny to help him. Bagsby and Vasquez were to hunt and fish for the general benefit, while the rest of us put up a stockade or corral and erected a cabin. I must confess the labor was pleasant. We had plenty of axes, and 4 of us were skilled in their use. Personally, I liked nothing better than the exercise of swinging a keen blade, the feeling of skillful accuracy, and the nicely adjusted effort. We felled hundreds of tall young pines, 8 inches to a foot in diameter, and planted them upright in a trench to form a stockade. Then we ran up a rough sort of cabin of 2 rooms. Yank, somewhat hampered by Johnny, finished his cradles and turned in to help us. Bagsby and Vasquez had brought in several deer and an elk, and trapped many quail and hares. We fared royally, worked healthfully in the shade of our trees, and enjoyed huge smokes and powwows around our fire of an evening. Every night we drove the horses within the enclosure and slept heavily. Always in the background of consciousness lay the gold, the incredibly abundant gold. It colored our dreams. It gilded our labor. As we drew to the end of our construction work, I really believe, we experienced a very slight, feeling of regret that this fine flavor of anticipation was so nearly at an end. However, I noticed that though we completed the house at 3 of the afternoon, we none of us showed any disposition to wait for the morrow. We promptly lugged one of Yank's log cradles to the border of the stream and put in 2 hours washing. The results were most encouraging, for we gained in that short time nearly 2 ounces of flake gold. That evening we reviewed our situation carefully. The older heads of the party, Yank, Bagsby, Don Gaspar, and Missouri Jones, overruled our young desire to jump into things headlong. "If this camp is going to get on right," said Yank, "we've got to make some provisions for working right. Somebody's got to be in camp all the time, that's sure, to cook some decent meals, to do the odd chores, and keep an eye on the stock." Bagsby nodded emphatically at this. "And somebody's got to rustle game and fish. You're 9 husky men to eat. If we leave 1 man in camp and 2 to hunt, we have 6 left for gold washing. That's 3 to a cradle, and that's just right." We came to that, too, and so settled into our routine. Bagsby was the only permanent office holder among us. He was unanimously elected the official hunter. The rest of us agreed to take turn about at the other jobs. It was further agreed to increase our chances by utilizing the cradles at 2 totally different kinds of diggings. One we located on the bar to wash out the shingle. The other we carried to a point opposite the dry ravine in which I had found my 3 little nuggets. Don Gaspar had worked like a nailer at the construction, although he was utterly unskilled. Now, at the end of the week, he was worn out, although he stoutly maintained he was as good as ever. This high-bred, energetic gentleman we had all come to admire, both for his unfailing courtesy and his uncomplaining acceptance of hardships to which evidently he had never been accustomed. Exactly why he underwent the terrible exertions incidental to gold finding, I have never quite fathomed. I do not believe he needed money, and I never saw one of his race fond of hard physical work. Indeed, he was the only member of his class I ever met who would work. The truth of the matter probably lies somewhere between an outcropping of the old adventurous conquistador spirit and the fascination of the golden medal itself, quite apart from its dollars and cents value. Unanimously, we voted in Don Gaspar as camp keeper for the first week. We wanted to give him a rest, but I do not think we pleased him. However, he bowed to our decision with his usual gracious courtesy. As hunting companion for Bagsby, we appointed Missouri Jones, with the understanding that every 2 days that office was to have a new incumbent. Johnny, McNally, and I took charge of the dry wash, and the rest of the party tackled the bar. Of course, we all except Bagsby were to share equally. Unless the wash should prove very productive, we would have the worst end of it, for we had to carry the pay dirt down to the stream's edge. For the purpose, we used the pack sacks, or alforjas, as the Spaniards call them. Each held about 60 or 70 pounds of dirt. We found this a sweaty and stumbly task to stagger over the water-smooth boulders of the wash, out across the shingle to the edge of the stream. Then one of us dumped his burden into the cradle, and we proceeded to wash it out. We got the color at once in the residuary black sand. All morning we labored manfully and discovered a brand new set of muscles. By comparison, our former toil of mere digging and washing seemed light and pleasurable exercise. "If this stuff doesn't run pretty high," grunted McNally, wiping the sweat from his eyes, "it's me voting for the bar. We can't stand all day of this." He heaved the contents of his pack sack into the cradle and shook it disgustedly. Suddenly, his jaw dropped and his eyes widened with so poignant an expression that we both begged him in alarm to tell us what was the matter. "Now will you look at that?" he cried. We followed the direction of his gaze, but saw only the meadow and the horses feeding in it, and the thin smoke beyond, where Don Gaspar was bending his proud Castilian spirit to attend to fried steak and flapjacks. "Look at those horses!" cried McNally with growing indignation. "What's the matter with them?" cried Johnny and I in a breath. "Matter with them? Nothing," cried McNally with comical disgust. "The matter's with us." He rapped his knuckles on his head. "Solid all the way through," said he. "Why, say, from natural-born human imbecility, should horses be living like gentlemen while gentlemen are working like horses?" We took the hint. That afternoon, we saddled the pack horses and led them, laden with dirt, back and forth between the ravine and the cradle. All of us worked until rather later in the day than usual. The hunters, too, did not return until dark. We weighed the results of our labor with eager interest. From our cradle, we had taken 11 ounces, while those working the bar had gained just over 9. That was a good day's work, and we were much elated. "And most any time," exulted Johnny, "we'll run into a big pocket with thousands."